Welcome to True Crime, Authors and Extraordinary People, the podcast where we bring two passions together. The show that gives new meaning to the old adage, truth is stranger than fiction, and reminding you that there is an extraordinary person in all of us. Here is your host, David McClam.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to an episode of True Crime, Authors and Extraordinary People. Of course, I'm your man, David McClam. Hey, if you haven't already, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. One link to a link tree will get you every place you need to go pertaining to the show. And as I always like to remind you, if you are someone who is thinking about hurting yourself or someone else, please leave this episode. Dial 811. This is the suicide prevention hotline. They will get you the help that you need. And just in case no one else has told you today, let me be the first to tell you, I do care, and we do need you to be here. All right, so let's get to who our guest is for today. Once again, I find myself in the pickle that she could fit into one of both categories, author or extraordinary people. We're bringing her here as my extraordinary person because you're about to find out why that is. If you do have any children, especially around that age of 10, 12 and up, you may want to bring them to this episode because they will learn a lot today. So our guest, she has been writing books since she was 12 years old, and she's been publishing them as well. She has written now 30 books in varying genres, and she is also a master at using TikTok to sell books, where she has amassed a following of well over 50,000 followers. She is also passionate about anti-bullying. So please welcome our extraordinary person, Shanti Hershenson. Hey, Shanti. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing just fine. So here's what I ask everyone. Is there anything else that we should know about you that was not said in your intro?
I just published book 21. I was going to say last month, but it was actually June. So about 2 months ago.
So we discussed this off air. So you're now 17. So you have been writing and publishing books now for 5 years, and you have 30. That's more than some authors that start in the middle of their life. Now we know you started at 12, but how did you get into writing books?
Of course. So, oh my gosh. And I cannot believe it's been 5 years, almost 6 now. Actually, it'll be 6 years in March. And ultimately, I've loved writing for about as long as I can remember. Ever since I was really, really, really young, it was something that I looked forward to doing in school and outside of school. It was something that I was just drawn to, even if I didn't know how to do it. And I also grew up really liking to read. So, but what happened was when I was in the 6th grade, it started right before the pandemic. Like literally, like my first book was published like 2 days before lockdown. And I wrote this little novella with my friend. It was just like this fun passion project. And I went online and I really wanted to know, like, okay, so how do I get a printed copy of this? Because the ultimate dream, is to get to hold something you wrote in your hand. And I went online and I found Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. And I was like, oh, this looks like a great way to get a printed copy. And then I realized after the fact that I had published a book at 12 years old. And so that's kind of like the origin of the origin story. That was the experience that kind of opened that world of possibilities. But I really do say the story actually begins when I was still in 6th grade, but like the summer after 6th grade. It was the height of lockdown. I had nothing to do but sit down and watch TV and play video games. And I decided that I was going to set out and write a book all by myself. And I really wanted to write like a full-length novel. I mean, at the time I was like, yeah, 100 pages could be cool, maybe 200. And then maybe if it's good enough, I'll publish it. And by the end, this book was 250,000 words and 800 pages and needed to be split into 3 books. And that book is called By Unlock. The first 2 books, I guess it was about 1 year after that, I published the first book. The second one came out in 2023, but that was really the experience that allowed me to start and then never stop.
Now you write multiple genres. Do you have a favorite genre that you like to write more than the other ones?
The genre I started with and the one that I write quite often is science fiction. That was my favorite genre growing up. I was a big Star Wars fan. So I'd say ultimately, like, I always find myself going back and thinking of new sci-fi ideas. With that being said, I also really love writing fantasy and I really love writing contemporary. I love writing books that take on real world social issues. I have all these different interests and things that I love, and they all kind of have their different like approaches in my writing. But yeah, like my main just favorite is science fiction.
Now at 12, I mean, you hit a couple of them. There's a lot of distractions that happens, especially nowadays to the youth. You have video games, you have nights out with friends, all kinds of stuff at school. How are you able to just hone in and continue to write your book with all of those distractions?
So it was hard at first. I remember in the early months of writing Biome Lock, I would go and I would sit in front of the TV and I'd be like, I'm going to write and I'm going to watch TV. Didn't work. I got maybe a sentence done. But the only way that I could sort of get over that was just coming to the realization that it's like, okay, I really want this. I really want to write this book. I'm not going to be able to write this book if I'm watching TV all day. I'm not going to be able to watch this book if I'm playing video games all day. So really trying to, remind myself of that and then finding the space to do both. So often, I would write and then like as a reward, I'd do something fun or I'd do the writing. And honestly, I think the writing's really fun, but I would write and then I would do something maybe more like normal and like teenager-y after. And then it would almost feel like I've worked towards that and I'm not just like wasting my time.
Well, nowadays we have various ways of how we can write a book or get a book done. As you know, you have computers, we have text to speech, we have AI. Do you use any of those? And if you do, why or why not do you advise somebody else to use those?
So for me, the only tool I really use is my brain and my computer. So I type up my books using Readsy, occasionally Google Docs. Other than that, I've never tried text to speech. I find it's easier for me to just write what comes directly from my head. And also I'm awkward when it comes to speaking out loud what I'm thinking and what I'm writing. I've never used AI for any of my books. I think that it's more fun and more of an accomplishment for me if all of it sort of came from my own skill. And I think that it's easier I prefer reading, just me personally, like things that were written by humans, because you can really capture that human experience in a way that a computer can't.
So can you share us a little bit about your writing process? How do you set everything up? How do you go about writing just one book?
Of course. So it always starts with an idea. Usually the idea comes to me while I'm writing another book and it ends up being in my backlog or just my list of ideas of things that I really want to write in the future. And often I'll get really excited about an idea and then I'll actually not end up writing it right away. But whenever I finish a first draft, I take a break and I go and I write another first draft, and then I'm always writing one book and editing another one. But for a single book, I often go right into it without much planning and much intricate outlining. Sometimes I have a paragraph, sometimes I have a little bit about the character, but in my first draft, I really like just letting the story shape the character, and I like seeing sort of almost like a choose your own adventure, where this is going to go. And then in the second draft, I make it seem like I knew what I was doing all along. And yeah, I write 1,000 words every single day. And over the course, it usually takes about 2 to 3 months to finish a first draft, but it really depends on the length of the work. I had one book I wrote, I guess, when I was in 10th grade. I was going to say last year, but that was not last year anymore. And it took about 5 months. And that was simply because it is over 1,000 pages, that draft. And from there, once I'm done, sometimes I let it sit. Sometimes I jump into it within a week of finishing it and start working on the things that I'm curious about. Sometimes I write a list of just things that I'm I don't know about this, maybe questions I have as I'm reading, things to be attentive of. And I see if my concerns as I'm reading it actually appear on the page or if they're more just things that are in my head. And then after that, and by the way, I also, a lot of the time, not always, I do this round on paper where I'll get a printed copy of the book and I'll read through it and I'll just annotate everything. I'll try to correct some errors I see, change sentence structures. And then in the next draft, I go and I put all of that on the actual document, and I go and see if there's more things that I haven't yet noticed. And then after that, I'll work with my editor, and we'll go through both, grammatically and on the sentence level, making sure everything sounds good and making sure there are no, extra errors that slip through. And given that I'm so used to what I'm reading, there are often errors that I just miss naturally because I'm reading what I think it should be since I wrote it. And then after that, we are usually, maybe there's something I need to rewrite, maybe there isn't. But at that point, we're usually kind of closer to publication. And at that point, I usually do one final read through, making sure everything looks good. And I send the book out to my ARC readers and I hear their feedback, and they'll leave reviews on release day. Every now and then they'll be like, hey, and they'll have a question, or maybe they'll find like a little typo in the book. And then I go through it one more time, and then the book is published. Sorry, that was very lengthy.
Well, wow. So here's where I'm amazed at. And this is what I want to share with the younger people, because I hear this all the time, especially from my own kids. Well, no one's going to take a kid seriously if they do something. Now, throughout what your answer was, we've learned you have your own group of ARC readers. You also have editors. And I'm assuming that a lot of these ARC readers are adults. Your editor is probably an adult. How did you get them all to take you seriously, being what they would consider a kid?
I got lucky early on in that I've been working with the same editor who's also my writing coach ever since I was 13. And I happen to find someone that takes me seriously and believes in me. But yeah, in terms of ARC readers, really a lot of it is that I try to present myself online as professionally as I can. Although often, even on my TikTok account, and a lot of the ARC readers happen to be people who found me on TikTok or Instagram, I still allow myself to be myself. If that makes sense. I occasionally post cat photos on my Instagram and TikTok stories. I think I just did that 2 days ago. I still make TikToks that are kind of funny and oriented towards my books. But I also try to present myself how I want people to perceive me, and that I want people to take me seriously. I want people to know, hey, I'm dedicated. I'm writing every day. I really, really care about this. And I don't want to say this isn't just a hobby, because that undermines the idea that people can't, that having writing as a hobby is less serious. In a way it isn't. But I really just try to present myself as professional. I try to make sure that I'm posting things I want people to see. And in a way that allows me to sort of, reach people that are going to look at me and be like, oh yeah, she's got this, she's serious about this. But it's also a lot of the time too, I've had people not take me seriously.
Well, I'm glad you say that you be yourself, because here's where I'm always at. There's a couple of people now that were kids when I met them that credit me because I believed in them. There's a girl now that I used to manage that's a supermodel. She says, well, because you believed in me. I think everyone, no matter your age, needs somebody to just believe in them and push them. And then we also have to accept you for who you are. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're 17. You still want to do things that 17-year-olds do. And then your book side, I think, is a little bit different. This is a different side of who you are versus the 17-year-old, right, Shanti. So I'm glad you said that, but I took you seriously off the bat when I saw. I'm like, dude, this kid's amazing, to be doing all these things. So I'm assuming now at 17 that you are a senior in high school.
Yeah, I'm going into my senior year.
So that brings up the question now. Senior high. The senior year is the most daunting year, I think, because you guys have a lot of stuff going on. How do you and how will you balance school and writing now?
Oh, good question. One thing I made sure this year, and this was something I had last year too, is I'm making sure I have just one free period. So I can get writing done during that period every other day. I can get homework done, and that allows me to have more time to balance everything. I'm also trying to just I find time to do things that are fun, and to really, find things I look forward to during the school year, because I'm terrified. I know I'm taking my hardest load of classes yet. I have college applications, but I'm also trying to find time to just, be a teenager. At the same time, I'm also doing right now a lot of my marketing and planning for the year right now, so I don't have to worry about it during the school year. So I have a ton of events lined up until the end of the year. And that's kind of helping me not have to worry so much about sending out all those emails and doing all that communication like during the year.
Well, it sounds like you have a good handle on how things are going to go.
I hope.
So I want to transition now into the other thing you're passionate about, which is anti-bullying. So my first question is, have you yourself been bullied?
Yeah. I mean, I've experienced bullying ever since I was really little. It's definitely been a formative experience that appears a lot in my writing. And it's become something that I do like care about a lot.
How do you feel that we can make bullying or handle bullying better in schools?
I think that a lot of the time, bullying is viewed more so as a conflict. And that's not always the case. And I think viewing it like a conflict in many cases can actually be more harmful, as it puts this sort of blame on the victim and it doesn't quite address the dynamic. So that's one thing, as I've always thought, is it's like, okay, we need to understand like what bullying is in schools. Bullying isn't two people having an argument. It is one person very much, targeting another person. And of course there are exceptions to all this. And yeah, I think ultimately listening is very important, and hearing stories, and not so much accepting that it's normal, because I think there's a lot of that in the school system where we're like, yeah, it happens all the time. This is something that's normal. And instead we can sort of just change that thinking and be like, yeah, this shouldn't be happening. There are ways we can prevent this. There are ways we can teach students to be more respectful and to have empathy. And we can also implement, punishment and communication, and really try to, educate people at a young age, if that makes any sense.
Do you feel like it's dangerous if someone's reporting bullying to either a parent or a school official and they just get annoyed or ignored?
I think that ignoring victims and brushing it off in trying to avoid the situation is one of the most harmful things that can be done, because then that teaches the bully that they can get away with it. That kind of creates this it very much worsens the situation. So instead, if the schools could focus more on protecting these victims, maybe keeping them apart, but also at the same time making sure the bully knows that's not okay. And if they keep doing it, then they need to implement more serious punishment, rather than just being like, oh yeah, well, we give up.
So I'll tell you where I'm going with this question, but do you feel like school administration could also be bullies to children?
Definitely. I think that there are power dynamics in the school systems, and there are, because it's school administrators are people that you're supposed to go to for help, and that can't, if they're, they might not always help, and because, they're supposed to be there for you, that can create a power dynamic that can absolutely be exploited, and that can absolutely become a bullying situation.
Here's why I asked that question. Back in season 1, I did a full episode about it, because my children has been bullied, not only by their peers, but by the administration here. And I'm one of those parents that if you do something to my kid, I'm not just going to sit back and take that. So season 1, I did an episode on Highland High School, which is the high school that my daughter went to, because about 4.5 years ago, there was actually a shooting that took place at that school because the kid had been bullied. Now, they moved the kid to another school in Quartz Hill, which is a ways away from where Highland is. But because of whatever took place, he felt like he had to get revenge. So he walked back to the school. He stayed overnight in sub 30-degree weather. In California, where I live, that's cold. Waited until the school opened the next morning and went in, but didn't go to shoot everybody. He just went to shoot the person that he felt was he bullied. He let everybody else go out of school and shot him. And I did. And then my son got bullied by the administration, where the principal threatened to fight me. So I spoke out on that. I did a whole episode, and I'm definitely anti-bullying. I have been for years. And when I saw that another young person is in that vein too, it made me very excited.
Yeah.
So what do you feel overall in the future that we can do to eliminate bullying?
Good question. I definitely think implementing and sort of teaching empathy at a young age is extremely helpful. on the other hand, kind of like what I said earlier, understanding the dynamics of bullying and really what it is and how it works rather than it just treating it as it's like a conflict where, oh yeah, let's put these two students in a room and have them talk it out. And also, at the same time, training teachers and administrators to respond to these situations more seriously, actually keeping track of them, reporting them, rather than just like sweeping it under the rug is extremely important. Again, like what I said too, trying to switch this sort of ideology that's like, oh yeah, it's normal, oh yeah, kids are mean. Because yes, kids are mean, but we can also teach them not to be, that in a way, no one's born mean. I don't think many people are born a terrible person. Maybe some people, but not many.
What advice do you have for other teenagers who has been bullied?
I tell someone what's happening, talk to someone, find a trusted adult. It doesn't mean that you're going to be like me and you're going to write like a book about it, or you're going to go and try to fight back. You don't have to do that. If you want to, go right ahead. I'm there to support you. But find a trusted adult, whether it's a parent, a relative, a coach, a teacher, an older sibling. I recommend someone older simply because, if you're young, maybe you're in middle school, early high school, bringing a peer into the situation can become difficult. But if you have a friend, talk to them. You're not alone. But I do think that finding like that older sort of an older person, just someone who's, been through school, who's seen the other side, and that can be really important, just finding ways to get help, if you can go to therapy and really working with, your emotion, your support system to find ways to remove yourself from the situation. And, that might be, having a meeting with your teachers and your school administration and just, finding that plan to sort of reverse the situation and make it out.
Well, you are certainly wise beyond your years. I'm being perfectly serious when I say this. I've asked some of these same questions about bullying to adults, educators, and could not get the clearest answer that I just got from you.
Thank you.
So maybe we should have you go around the schools and do forums on how we can solve this.
Oh yeah, that would be fun.
So stepping back the one thing I did forget to touch on, which I really wanted to talk about. You are a master of getting a huge following and promoting your books on TikTok. How does one go about doing that?
Of course. So I started my TikTok account right before 8th grade. I had no idea what I was doing, but really early on, I paid attention to what was trending, what kinds of videos were being made in the writing community on TikTok. And then I tried to replicate them. And it worked. I've also utilized TikTok advertising a bit as well. And really, what you have to understand about TikTok is you have to understand where your audience is and how you can reach them. For me, that's quite easy. My audience is teenagers. Teenagers rule TikTok. But trying to then make videos that will connect with the people who I want to read my books. For example, sometimes that's like creating TikToks with writing tips. I do quite a bit of that on there. And because inevitably a lot of readers are also writers, and almost all writers are readers. Also, finding these trends and making videos that apply to big trends on the app can be great as well.
One of the last questions I have is because right now you're self-published, you publish through Amazon. Do you like self-publishing, or do you think at some point in time in your career, you decide to get a traditional publisher?
I do really like self-publishing. I think it's been a great learning experience to get to do everything myself, get to source my own cover designers, do my own marketing, own all the rights. With that being said, I think it would also be really interesting and be a great experience to traditionally publish as well, because there are opportunities and doors that can open, and I'd love to have those at some point. So really, I think trying both worlds is something I'm quite interested in.
So I talked to a lot of authors that do both. There is actually a really good publisher out there named Genius Books who I promoted to the hill because of some of the things you will find in traditional publishing, right? So as you probably know, sometimes the editor at the publishing company wants to cut half your book out, or they want to reword it in a different way, or the cover that you chose don't work for them. And Genius Books, they do some of that, but they kind of let the author handle what they want to. How would you feel if you did go to traditional publishing and somebody said, yeah, well, this section don't quite work for me, so I need to change that to this? How do you feel about that?
I think ultimately I'm very connected with my books. So I think I would be like, oh no. But I understand that it's such a part of the process that I would definitely just chalk myself into being okay with it and hope the book turns out well. I would probably try to tell myself that, it's like they know what they're doing. It's for a reason. I'm kind of a stubborn person though, so I might argue about it.
And the one question I ask all my authors, I didn't ask you, but I need to ask you this question because I always get different answers. The characters you create for your books, do they live with you? Like, do you wake up with them in your mind, shower, all the thing you're thinking about them all the time?
Yes. Always. And I have several hundred characters now, and they all pop up at random times.
Now, to all the books you have written for someone that's new to you, is there a specific book that you would suggest that they start reading?
I have different answers depending on what someone's interested in. I'd say if someone wants a book that's a little bit more contemporary, a little less on the fantastical, but maybe still has a little bit of those like kind of magical bordering sort of sci-fi elements, I'd suggest Helipads in Heaven. It's about an author who time travels back to observe her younger self. I really do think it's more literary fiction. Time travel is a device for the story, but it's not a central part of it. And it also deals with more themes of social commentary and the school system and bullying. So that's a good pathway to get into that side of my work. On the other hand, if you're looking for some sci-fi fun, you should check out Little Green Man or Never Dying. Those are two of my most popular books. Little Green Man is about a 17-year-old alien enthusiast who may or may not discover that there are aliens in her town. And Never Dying is much more futuristic and fantastical. It is about a dystopian future in which a random handful of society is immortal, and that is the oppressed class.
Great answers. Well, I found you on the Extraordinary People side, but I am going to definitely be reading your books. Also, my daughter is into everything you write, so you probably have two new readers here.
Thank you.
And we can definitely have you back on the show because
I'd love to.
I know I'm going to want to talk to you about some of these books. Read them. In closing, is there anything that you want to say to any of your fans or readers that may be listening to this today?
Good question. I mean, ultimately, the thing that I keep saying over and over again is thank you. I feel so grateful to get to do things like this and to get to continue writing and publishing my books. I think it's one of those things that's just like, I've always dreamed of this. But really, I have to it's the readers that have allowed me to keep going.
Well, I thank you for coming on the show today, Shanti. It's been an excellent conversation. You are wise beyond your years. You're an excellent young lady. My advice to you is, which I'm sure you're stubborn like me, you're not going to, but don't ever let anyone derail you from what you're doing now or tell you that you can't. You've set yourself up for a future beyond high school, beyond college. I think I'll look you up in 10 years and you'll be this extraordinary author with a few number one bestsellers.
Thank you so much.
Anytime you want to come back on the show, feel free to contact me.
I would love to.
And I would definitely be reaching out because I know I'm going to have some questions about some of these books. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, that was the amazing Shanti Hershenson. You can find out more about her on her website at shantihershenson.com. The link to that will be in the show notes, as well as you can look at my website and you can find information linked to this episode. All links you need to know will be in the show notes. Also, you've heard her said, I recapped it. She is an Amazon author, which means if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read her books there up under your subscription. I remind you, as I always do when I deal with authors that publish on Kindle Unlimited, Shanti does not get any money unless you flip the pages. So don't just simply download the book. Make sure you are reading it so we can get her the credit and the money that she so deserves. All right, once again, thank you for joining us today. I know you have many choices in true crime and interview podcasts. I am grateful that I am one of your choices. You have been listening to the only three-faceted podcast of its kind. Be good to yourself and each other. And always remember, always stay humbled. An act of kindness can make someone's day. A little love and compassion can go a long way. And remember that there is an extraordinary person in all of us. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Join us on social media. One link to the link tree has it all. Feel free to drop us a line at truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. Cover art and logo designed by Arslan. Sound mixing and editing by David McClam. Intro script by Sophie Wild and David McClam. Theme music, Legendary, by New Alchemist. Introduction and ending credits by Jackie Voice. See you next time on True Crime, Authors, and Extraordinary People.